I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually really important because, like, if I buy a jig for my machine and I get comfortable with it, a jig or whatever, right?
Okay, yeah. But we can't call it a jig. We have to call it a
windproof. Thank you, a windproof lighter. I'll like bleep that out during the episode. A windproof lighter jig, and I need a jig for a bottle opener. I don't want to have like 50 different jigs from 50 different companies with 50 different design aesthetics.
Right.
Like that. It's weird. So I don't think that there's a problem with producing, jigs that already exist on the marketplace. I totally understand where you're coming from, where you don't want to introduce unnecessary competition. But if somebody likes your style, and that's what laser engraving is, right? It's style.
You're absolutely correct.
If somebody likes your style, man, and then they go to your shop and they're like, he doesn't make the bottle opener jigs. And then you get you have to go out and you start getting like a mix match set, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As a consumer, that drives me crazy.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, as a consumer, that drives me crazy. I hate that.
Never watch this live, do you?
Oh, no, not live. No. Hey, everybody. What's up? It's Alex over at Laser Everything. You're listening to the Laser Source podcast, the #1 podcast if you're looking to grow or scale your laser business. We have a really special guest with us today, James Brewer, longtime LMA member, innovator, and businessman. He's got a lot of stuff going on, and we're really excited to have you on the podcast today, James. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a real honor to be here.
Yeah, awesome. And of course, Boyce is here with me today. What's up, Boyce? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm surviving. I made it.
So I'm just gonna jump right into it. I want to get some of the basic stuff out of the way. I mean, do you want to just like introduce yourself to the audience real quick? Let them know like what you do, what you don't.
Okay. Well, essentially, I got into laser engraving about probably the beginning of COVID, and it all transpired. I had laser envy. A good friend of mine called me up one day and said, "Hey, I need you to speak to a friend of mine. He's got a laser and he doesn't know how to work it." And so, long story short, he got a laser for nothing. It was a 130 watt CO2 laser, but it was wired for 220. And where he lived, the house that he lived in didn't have 220 service where he wanted the laser to be. And he's asking me, well, can I buy a transformer to change the voltage, this, that, and the other? And I said, well, you really don't need to do that. Just replace the power supplies for 110 source power supplies. Because as we all know, on the back side of the power supply, it's all DC.
Right.
So it's pretty much just anyway, so when I asked him how much he paid for it, and he told me the story about how he got it for nothing and this, that, and the other, I thought to myself, well, I've wanted a CO2 laser. I've been doing CNC woodcraft with the Cnc Routing Machine, and I wanted to get into the lasers. I had a diode laser, and, they're fun, but I wanted to get into one of the big boys, if you will.
Yeah, sure.
And so essentially, I went on a mission to find somebody that had a broken laser or something that, needed a little TLC, for a decent price. And I ended up finding some plans online from a guy in New Zealand, company or website's furtherfabrication.com. Okay. I bought the plans for $15, and I won't call it lucky, but as luck would have it, COVID started. And, everybody's on lockdown, this, that, and the other. So I essentially built a 75 watt CO2 laser with a 2 foot by 4 foot cutting area. Mm-hmm. And then as I got into that, I started to find videos online for fiber laser engraving, and I really wanted to get into that.
Right.
And Alex, I give you a lot of credit for my success because prior to purchasing my fiber laser, I watched, I think, all but 2 of your videos. Cool. That you had at the time.
Yeah.
And that really sealed the deal for me. I do a lot of research when I get into anything. And so having watched, like I said, all but 2 of your videos, it gave me the confidence to say, I can do this, and I'm not going to have a problem spending upwards of $3,000 to buy a fiber laser and be successful with it, because the last thing I want to do is spend that kind of money and then fail. And because nobody likes to fail. So with that, and again, I give you all the credit for my success with the fiber laser, because when I got my laser back in, well, this October will be a year since I got it.
Cool. Yeah.
I literally took it out of the box, set it up, plugged everything in, made sure the computer connected to it properly, and in 2 hours, I was engraving successfully, and I was having really good marks on all the different materials that I was trying. And again, because of the LMA, which actually when I joined, it was still a Patreon site.
Right. Old.
Yeah. So
Throwback Thursday.
Right. And so as luck would have it, the laser that I purchased was a 30-watt JPT, which I don't need to tell anybody that's downloaded the parameters file knows that those parameters are based on that laser, which you have.
Right.
So being lucky enough to accidentally buy a laser that matched yours, all the parameters were pretty much spot on. There was only a few of them that I had to adjust, and just, again, very minor tweaks to the parameters table, and successfully marking all kinds of things. Yeah. And so I was fooling around with it between October and February. So what is that? Roughly 4 months. I was fooling around with it, and then I got really, really involved with the LMA when you went full steam. And I watched the episode where you literally turned off your website.
Oh yeah, it was a good time.
And your retail operation. And I'm like, you know what? This is just amazing. And then slowly things evolved. And again, watching one of your videos and one of your tutorials on how to figure out focal length, I watched you use the focal stick, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've got a CO2 laser. I can make one of those. Right. And I did. And you and I exchanged a few messages and emails, and I actually got your design file, and I tweaked it a little bit. Yeah. And then we spoke about, hey, would you mind if I sold these on an Etsy store? And that was really the first product in my Etsy store, aside from some powder coated tumblers.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I haven't sold a single powder coated tumble on my Etsy.
I believe it. Store. Yeah. It's saturated, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, there are so many people making them. I actually sell more to my friends than I do anywhere else. Sure. But so
do you have like a full-time gig that you do that isn't laser engraving? Yeah.
Yes.
So what is that?
I work for the federal government.
Okay.
Cool. I've been an employee with them for 24 years now, and got about 4 years left before I have to retire.
Gotcha.
I'm in one of those jobs where you have a mandatory retirement age. So
right.
But yeah, so that's pretty much my full-time gig. And I got into I started the Etsy store with the idea that I want to have something established, in business since 2022, kind of a thing. So 4 years down the road, when I don't have a regular job, I can say, well, I've been around for 5 years.
Yeah, I've existed. Yeah, you're not starting from scratch the second you retire, and then you have to build up. You've got the momentum already.
Exactly, and that's exactly what the plan was.
Right,
or is, I should say, not was.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because in the big thing for me, and I want to stress this again, the LMA channel and your YouTube channel are a big part of why I've been successful. And the focal sticks for the fiber lasers was my intention, still is, or my drive is, to give back to the community, because not everybody has access to a CO2 type laser to cut out those sticks. Yeah. And they're super helpful. And
so helpful.
Yeah, it's night and day, especially when, I don't need to tell you, yeah. I learned it from you. So, but,
yeah. And I think it's important too that we make it super clear right now. Like, the focal sticks are super easy to make. It's 2 rectangles, right?
That's exactly
it. You just need to cut it out. You could do it with a saw. You could do it with like literally anything. Sometimes I tell people to get like just a dowel rod and just cut it the right length, and that can be a focal stick. But that said, some people just don't want to deal with it. You know, some
Yeah.
people just want to like type two numbers into a computer and then have it like show up at their door. And I feel like a lot of people have ordered your focal sticks. Is that going pretty well?
Yeah. I can, let me just, I don't know what's going to happen if I click on that tab. Can you guys still see me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to do.
Pull up the page if you don't mind, so we can take a look at it.
There's
we're
actually
kind of talking to him too.
There's actually people that are in the comments saying they bought your sticks.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like in the thing. Yes, we have here's this page with some of your what the hell am I trying to think? Jigs, yeah.
Yep.
Jigs or fixtures, depending upon what school you went to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
So
the focal sticks.
So to date, the Etsy store, we probably average, well, not probably, we do average about $1,000 in sales a month, and it's only something that I really only get into maybe 2 or 3 days a week, or 2 or 3 evenings, I should say.
Yeah.
There's a couple of listings there that, one listing in particular that Etsy took down. I don't know why, but anyway. So to answer the question, the focal sticks, to date, we've taken 134 orders so far.
Amazing.
And quite a few of those orders have been for multiple sticks.
Good.
So, Etsy doesn't really give me a breakdown as to actually how many sticks we've made. They just, they do it by order. So, hey, that's great. KG, sorry. Yes. Yeah,
he bought one of yours. That's awesome.
Yep. And, funny, it's our first customer ever.
Awesome.
Was is an LMA member, and actually asked me to send him the sticks and sent me money via PayPal, if I remember correctly, through the website, not even on Etsy. And that's really kind of what got me going and kind of pushed the button for me, so to speak. And my youngest daughter also, she was a big influence. She's like, you got to do this. People are paying crazy money for the silliest things that cost nothing to make, and it was just one of those things where, okay, what's the worst that can happen?
I mean, take it from me, because this is me exactly. Some people have money and some people have time. You rarely have both, right? I'm not like working 3 hours a week. You know what I mean?
No, you're not. No.
I'm extremely busy. If there is a small problem, like something like a focal stick, for example, and I was a different person in a different situation, that's a problem I would throw money at. Like, simple things that you can just kind of throw money at that problem, make it go away. That's the headspace people are in. Of course, anybody could craft one of these things, but
absolutely,
is it worth your time, or is there something that you could spend your time, doing something more important? And I think for a lot of these guys, since our community is entrepreneurs and creators, right, there's probably something more important that a lot of these guys could be doing with their time. And this is a very simple thing to just kind of throw your money at.
Absolutely. And that's actually one of our many mottos in the shop is time is money.
Yeah.
And, I can spend 15, 20 minutes designing something and another half hour or 45 minutes cutting it out, or order it from Bob's shop for $15 and have it in a couple of days with the mail. And so it's time is money. And, honestly, everybody has their own wheelhouse and they know what they're good at. And, if you can rely on others as part of the community to support each other, then by all means do so. I've bought stuff that I've seen on the Laser Everything channel. Matter of fact, when you did the Made by Members video, and you showcased a few of our products, and then there was another gentleman that makes race car parts, if I'm not mistaken. I bought one of his framing jigs.
Oh, the variable fence gates.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are so cool.
I've actually chatted with him, via text messages quite a few times now, and one of the things that I'm waiting for, and I think it's going to put me out of the laser stick business for people that can afford it, but he's coming up with an electronic auto-focusing mechanism that basically sits on the galvo head and basically determines the, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it's essentially it's a focusing device that bolts onto the galvo head.
Well, you know, too, I really like focal sticks specifically. So there are autofocus modules on some of these machines. That exists. Yeah. And I, you know, I really like. There's two things that I can't stand: the electric Z-axis, motorized Z-axis with the buttons. I hate that. Drives me nuts. It's slow and it's not. You know, I don't feel like it's accurate. And then autofocus. I hate autofocus because laser engraving is 50% science, man, but it's 50% art. And like, depending on how you've got, you know, your item jigged or how you have things set up, you might want the focus just like a 0.5 millimeter higher or a 0.5 millimeter lower. And the second you plug an autofocus system into something, that becomes way more difficult, and it takes that kind of like human touch out of it. I guess if you're brand new, if you're really new, right, and you just want it to be perfect every time, like autofocus is great. But for the crowd that is like me, that's been doing this for a while, that like takes a huge chunk of like control out of the equation. Whereas with something like a focal stick or like a physical depth gauge, right, I can see where the correct focus is, and then I can give a little or take a little or do whatever I need to do, you know, during my process. And I value that. So I definitely think there's always going to be a market for focal sticks, because I know I'm not the only person that's that crazy.
Yeah, I've got a. I'm sorry. Go ahead, boys.
I'll say I got a question for what kind of lasers do you have?
So I've actually got quite a few. I actually started all of my maker-ing, if you will, if that's even a term, probably about 2009. I started out with 3D printers, and I actually got really good at it. You know, programming Marlin firmware and, you know, learning all of the Gerbil commands that you need to learn, and it was a borderline sickness, and but I got so good at it that there's a professional organization that I belong to through work, and they actually asked me to teach a class on the introduction of 3D printing. And of course, you know, back in 2009, 2010, it was basically an emerging technology at the consumer level. You know, you could get a decent sized printer for about $3,000-ish, depending on where you went. The first consumer grade machine that I purchased for work was a MakerBot. But prior to that, I had built a couple of i3 Pruzas, and the MakerBot was kind of a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. Not so muckfudgery that you had to do with it, and not a lot of mucking about or fannying about, as my British friends would say. And then so after getting into that and doing a few classes for them, they actually asked me and a friend of mine, could you guys do a build class where the students would sit down and build a 3D printer? And so we engineered, based off the Prusa model, instead of a single frame, we used a dual frame, which made it a lot more rigid and basically kept it from shaking itself to death. That went off really well. And a few years after that, I got into CNC routing machines, and it's basically the same thing.
Like X-Carve kind of stuff?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
My first machine was an X-Carve. Now it's an EX-Carve. X, get it? Like ex-wife, but
gotcha.
So the only thing that's the original machine on that now is the base frame. Everything else has been heavily modified and upgraded. It's got a 24,000 RPM water-cooled spindle on it.
Whoa.
I can cut reliably 1/4-inch aluminum plate with it, and it doesn't even know it's there. It's kind of unreal.
Right.
So when I got the X-Carve, a friend of mine said, "Hey, I bought a laser module for my X-Carve. I don't want it anymore. I don't like lasers. Do you want it?" And I said, "Well, sure. How much?" Because nothing's free.
Right.
And anyway, so he said, "I don't know. I'll give it to you for $400." Okay. Brand new, it was $800, and I think he told me he had like 2 hours on it. So essentially, it's a brand new laser. So that was a 7-watt diode laser. And after I got really comfortable with that, I decided to convert one of the 3D printers that I had from that build class into a diode laser. So it was a little bit smaller form factor, but the same amount of accuracy and whatnot. I put a 5-watt laser on that.
Yeah.
And then, so fast forward to the beginning of COVID, I built my own CO2 laser, and it's it doesn't use a DSP controller like most people have on their CO2 lasers. Mine is actually Gerbil based.
Oh, okay.
And I use, are we allowed to drop product name here?
Yeah.
I use the Open Builds controller, the black box controller specifically.
Okay, sweet.
So, and that particular controller is, when it was built, it was built for versatility. It can be a CNC plasma table. It can be a water jet cutter. It can be a CNC router cutter. It can.
So it's kind of like Honey, I blew up the CO2 or the K40, right? Honey, I blew up the K40.
Exactly. It's essentially that. And part of my X carve is I replaced the stock controller with a black box controller. Gotcha. So that I could take advantage of using the water-cooled spindle and turning on a VFD and controlling a water pump and an air assist and all that fun stuff,
right?
With one controller and their platform software for controlling it. It's I really love it. I still teach CNC classes to the professional organization I mentioned earlier, and I'm a very huge proponent of their software because A, it's open source and it's free, and B, the user interface is it's elegant, but it's very simple, but it's very complete at the same time. It's got a lot of built-in wizards and whatnot. You could use it for a CO2 laser. Of course, I use Lightburn because everybody knows Lightburn is thebomb.com.
Yep.
Can't believe I just said that on YouTube.
It's all good.
But yeah, so couple of diode lasers, 75-watt CO2, a 30-watt JPT, fiber laser.
The JPT, was that an EasyCAD 2 model? So are you light burning on that now too?
So work's been busy for me.
Sure.
We just got done with our national conference, and so I was away for 2 weeks. I actually had to pause put my Etsy store in vacation mode, which I never did and didn't understand how it worked. But for 11 days, I was offline and not selling anything. But as soon as I hit the go button, they came in. I was busy for a few days. But that being said, I've been remiss. I've watched a video on the Lightburn Galvo series that you've done, and I just haven't had time.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm slowly getting back to it now, where I had a health issue where I literally had shingles, and guys, if you haven't gotten the shingles vaccine, go get it.
Yeah.
No, it
painful.
Sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks really bad, and I'm on the tail end of it right now. So, if you have had it, you know what I've been dealing with for the last 3 weeks. But anyway, so aside from all of that, it's on my radar. It's on the whiteboard. Learn Lightburn for Galvo.
Worst case scenario, right? In 4 years, you just do the ultimate laser everything binge session, right? And just
I could do it again. Yeah. No, but my plan is. Starting on Thursday, because tomorrow's kind of a heavy day at work, but starting on Thursday, when I get finished with work, I'm going to sit down and do the Galvo series, because EasyCAD, there's nothing easy about it, but once you learn all the tricks and all the, we'll call them workarounds, because of their lack of, I don't know, what's the word we should use on this? Their lack of foresight. No, not foresight. Their lack of creativity in their software. I mean, if you're using the free public version, the no dongle version, there's a lot of radio buttons at the top that you don't see. There's no labels on them or nothing, but they're there. And if you hover over them, you can actually see the gray button outline itself. And if you know approximately where the button is, you can click it and it'll do something.
No.
But again, that's the little nuances and the workarounds that you have to kind of sort out. So I'm still comfortable enough with it, and I'm still getting, believe it or not, I'm still getting orders for stuff that I have to fiber laser engrave. And because I don't know the Lightburn for Galvo as well as I know the EasyCAD, I haven't made the jump, but it is on the. It is. I've already purchased a copy of it. It's on the machine.
Yeah.
I just need to sit down and do it.
Yeah, yeah. And we do have Kyle hanging out back here in the studio, so I'm going to bring him in too, so we can hang out with Kyle too. What's up, Kyle? How you doing, man?
Hey, Kyle. How you doing, buddy?
Good to see you, man.
Good to meet you.
Thank you.
And
pleasure to meet you as well.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about switching to Lightburn for Galvo is that it's still an EasyCAD controller in your machine, so you're still sending the same commands. Lightburn just puts them in easier to read and understand places, but the way the machine works isn't changing.
No.
So it's what if you've taken the time to learn EasyCAD, and I know some of you guys still haven't switched over. If you're taking the time to learn EasyCAD, I wouldn't consider that like wasted time. You can carry that stuff with you over to Lightburn for Galvo and use that knowledge. It's directly applicable to what you're doing with Lightburn for Galvo. So if you guys are on the fence, come on, stay on for a while.
No, but in all seriousness, anybody that's listening, if you're just getting into fiber lasers and you're still having trouble with EasyCAD, Alex has said it 100 times in his videos, and I'm sure Kyle has said it too. Just stop what you're doing. Take your hands off the EasyCAD. Don't touch the EasyCAD. Switch to Lightburn. Watch the videos. Yeah. I haven't done it, but I'm going to do it. Yeah. The interface, I mean, the trace image feature in Lightburn is worth the price of admission all by itself.
Right.
Without a doubt. You grab any black and white image on the internet, and Alex has shown it, Kyle has shown it in their videos on the different projects that they've been doing on, and it's so simple. And, the cost of Lightburn versus a couple of months of Adobe Illustrator, it's kind of a no-brainer, guys. And it's a very simple interface that you can use offline. You do not need to be connected to the internet. So, road trip, whatever, you can do it. And it's saved me so much time, and I've shown other people how to do it, and they're like, oh my God, this is so simple. Why didn't I know this?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple questions for you really quick before we move on. I'm wondering if you will understand the context of this question. Smokery12 says, what do you think about Shark? And if you could give us some context, that'd be great.
So, essentially, everybody's familiar with the Austin Powers movies. And you got shark. Wait, there we go. Sharks with freaking lasers on their head. Yeah, so that's basically what that boils down to.
Gotcha.
That's one of my friends. That I notified a couple of guys. They're like, hey, I'm going to be on YouTube.
Nice, cool.
Please watch me. Hit the like button, and if you like, subscribe as well.
So what's the answer? How do we feel about Shark?
Oh, well, it's sharks with freaking lasers. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Got it.
Simple as that.
Boba the Fets wanted to throw in, I have the Open Builds controller, also 9N, a WorkBee CNC machine.
I'm thinking that 9N is on a WorkBee CNC machine.
Oh, gotcha.
Essentially, he bought a WorkBee that had a very basic, not so great Gerbil-based controller. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing what he's done is that he's converted his to the Open Builds controller just for the simple fact that it's extremely small form factor. If you're familiar with the 35 amp 24 volt DC Meanwell power supplies and their form factor and their size, the Open Builds controller is designed to stack on top of that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So it's the same size, and it's the same physical size, and it's so easy to work with. It really is, and the community over there at Open Builds, they're very responsive to bugs in the software, and they jump right on it. Mm-hmm. There's been bugs that I've reported, and they were fixed on the same day.
Yeah, and I wish I had time to get into like these other maker technologies, because they're so interesting to me, and I know that I could wrap my head around it if I had the time. And it's just, this is a full-time gig, my brain is like full with lasers. So maybe, I don't know, after I retire or something, I'll see what we have out at that point. But this stuff's so cool. And another question for you from Michael. James, will the 86 millimeter by 54 millimeter business cards fit in the Rfid Wallet Engraving Jig you're selling?
No, they won't. but we're in the process of designing our own business card jig. I hate to take away from, anybody else's thunder. There's just been, I go back to all of the support that, and the support's come in many ways, but all of the free information and the very, what's the word I want to use? Non-judgmental answers I've been given for questions asked in the community. And you know how it is. There's some places like on Facebook, you can ask the simplest question, like, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop? And there's always that one asshole that, just gives you the crappiest answer and just takes all the wind out of your sails. And then, some of the answers are sarcastic and funny. And if you read them correctly, they, that's what they are. But there's some people that, can get hurt, if you will,
Turned off.
Turned off. Exactly.
Turned off. Yeah.
And so again, I go back to when I got into all of this, I got a lot of support and I didn't get turned off. I got a lot of great answers and it was beneficial to me. And so, that's my big thing is that I'd like to give back to this community as much as possible. And so when I say I don't want to steal somebody's thunder, if somebody else is making a business card jig, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you look at some of the jigs that I have, and Alex, you told me this. I asked you the question specifically. It's like, hey, there's other guys that are doing flask jigs and coin jigs and PMAG jigs and this, that, and the other, for the LMA store. And you're like, well, Walmart doesn't only sell one brand of weed eaters. They sell 5 brands.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually really important because, like, if I buy a jig for my machine and I get comfortable with it, jig or whatever, right?
Okay, yeah. But we can't call it a jig. We have to call it a
windproof. Thank you, a windproof lighter. I'll like bleep that out during the episode. A windproof lighter jig, and I need a jig for a bottle opener. I don't want to have like 50 different jigs from 50 different companies with 50 different design aesthetics.
Right.
Like that. It's weird. So I don't think that there's a problem with producing, jigs that already exist on the marketplace. I totally understand where you're coming from, where you don't want to introduce unnecessary competition. But if somebody likes your style, and that's what laser engraving is, right? It's style. If somebody likes your style, man, and then they go to your shop and they're like, he doesn't make the bottle opener jigs. And then you get you have to go out and you start getting like a mixed match set, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As a consumer, that drives me crazy.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, as a consumer, that drives me crazy. I hate that. So, I get where you're coming from, man. But especially on small ticket items like these, we're not talking about making a competing autofocus module that took, X number of thousands of dollars and months and months and months to develop. We're talking about like a, it's a jig. It's like it's a focal stick. You know what I mean? Like
it is. Yeah. And I've thought about it quite a bit. And it's funny that he asked about, is it the same size as the RFID jig, the RFID wallet jig?
Mm-hmm.
I'll make one. Yeah. I mean, if guys want to buy one, I'll make a metal business card jig for the 86 by 54 millimeter metal business cards. And the biggest issue when designing jigs is trying to figure out how big a lens the people are going to need to use for the jig. And most of the jigs that we make, you'll need a 200 millimeter lens, just because of the size of the items. Right. The PMAG jig and the AR-15 lower and upper jigs that we make, those require a big lens. But like the coin jigs that we just started producing, those are designed for a 110 or a 70 millimeter lens. They'll work just fine underneath those lenses. Yep. And those were added to our store, by the way. I got a message from a guy on Facebook, and he said, "Hey, I understand you make jigs. Can you make one for these size coins?" And I'm like, "Sure." Yeah. And so I cranked them out in a day, and I sent him pictures. He's like, "Oh, those look great. Send them to me. I'll send you the money." And boom, I did. And then I put it on. I'm sorry, no. Let me back up. He liked them. He liked the design layout. So I said, okay, to make the whole shipping and purchasing side for you a lot easier, I'll just create an Etsy listing, and I left it up.
Right. Sure.
And,
Because you already did the R&D, right? You already created the product.
Absolutely. And I had pictures of it and everything else.
Yeah.
So I left it up, and sure enough, a week later, I got 2 more orders.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll do the same thing with the RFID jig. I'm sorry, for not the RFID jig, the jig for the metal business cards. We'll design one that fits under. I'll try to get as close to 110 as possible. It's kind of hard because they're 86 millimeters wide, but if I stack them vertically, I can definitely get 2 of them underneath a 110. Actually, no, not a 110. It'd have to be a 150. So we'll probably design it for a 120. I'm sorry, a 200 or a 220 lens, so that across the board, it's hard to make a business card jig that does one at a time, because if you've ever done one at a time and you get an order for 100 of them, it takes a while.
Yeah.
I bought a metal jig from 713 Makers or 710.
Yep. We love them. Great site.
Yeah.
713.
Yeah. So I bought their guide rail kit. That's what I call it. I don't know what they call it exactly. And I also bought one of their business card jigs. And when I was first making business cards, I started using those. And then I got an order for a decent number of them. And I thought, wow, that's going to take a while, one at a time.
Yeah.
And I found a guy on Facebook that makes a 3D printed, call it a turret for lack of a better term, that clamps into the rotary.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically spins 6 cards. And he's also got a 10 card model, or I'm sorry, an 8 card model. Yes, exactly.
Right,
On the camera's stupid thing. So it rotates like this. And the one that I purchased is a 6 slot, and he also makes an 8 slot.
Wow.
And it didn't cost a lot of money. I mean, I've got 3D print. I have several 3D printers. A lot of the jigs that we sell are printed with 3D printers.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing had to take a substantial amount of time to print. Now, I would guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 hours, which, for a 3D print, if it fails halfway, that's time wasted. So it's a long time, but I think I paid $30 plus shipping for it. So it was like $40.
Right.
Like we said earlier, time is money.
Money.
If I can buy something for $40 instead of waiting 8 hours for it to print and possibly fail, because 3D printers are not perfect, money well spent. And it sped up my business card process. Yeah. But, if you haven't checked out, for the people watching, if you haven't checked out 713makers.com, go give their website a spin. They've got a lot of they've got a lot of really good jigs for laser engraving. And like I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of competing with everybody else for their little niche items. Could I make a business card jig that does 4 cards at a time and sell it for $15 plus shipping? Sure, all day. I could.
Yeah.
But that's the onesie.
Well, and I mean that just from another perspective too, like you certainly could do that, but that already exists, and you would be competing with somebody else who's already well known for making that item. So why not spend your time doing R&D on something new that the market hasn't seen yet? And that's kind of where our focus is right now, is making things that not everybody else is making, or there might be one other person making it and selling it for what I call stupid, ridiculous amount of money. Sure.
I'm about giving back to the community that gave me a lot of help before and after the purchase of my laser. Right. And and the community's helping me now to this day. I mean, you guys invited me on your podcast. This is so cool. It's not even funny.
It's great having you on.
Thank you. But one of the things that we like to specialize in is custom jigs. So if you need a jig for something and nobody else is making it, give me a buzz.
Right.
It's not hard. I've done quite a few custom jigs. I've done a few rotary tables and designs for that bolt right onto your existing rotary that you already have. Mm-hmm. Or we can do one that we did was we essentially took the scroll chuck, or the 3-jaw chuck, off of the rotary because it's only attached with an adapter plate, and then we made our table jig to bolt right on to that adapter. Right. So we're a lot about using what you already have to make things better or work better for you.
Yep.
Instead of, I mean, I could go buy a rotary, for $180 or whatever it costs, and and sell it with the table attachment on it, or I could sell you something for $50.
Right.
It bolts onto the gear that you already have, because those things are kind of standard.
Yeah.
And if they're not, it's very easily adapted.
Right.
And most everybody's got a 500 millimeter or 50 centimeter tower. They go right under it, and you don't need a big lens. You only need a 70 millimeter lens to get on a table, because you're only engraving one item at a time, and then the item, spins around like a record player, and the items are only moving underneath the laser.
Yeah.
So again, custom jigs. That's kind of what we want to do. We want to be able to make you the things that nobody else is doing. So
we're trying, to make that easier too. That's one of the things I've actually been spending time on, is selling a service rather than a product on the Laser Everything marketplace. You were such an early adopter to that too. You've been here early for everything. You're here early for the channel. You're here on the Patreon, early, first on the LMA. Now you're first on the Laser Everything marketplace. It's not open yet, guys. I'm working on it, but you're on there. Your Etsy products are there. It's ready to go. We literally just need to turn it on. We're getting very close. I just hired a bunch of people that are helping me fine tune the things that we couldn't get right with the outsourced work that we had done on it. It's coming along great, but you were there day one. What are you excited about? Why do you think that the Laser Everything marketplace is going to be successful? Because I know that people that make products like low-cost jigs don't sign up for services they don't think they're going to make sales on. So I'm really interested to hear why you're stoked to be there.
Well, so the main reason why I'm stoked to be there, again, I go back to this, is the community gave me so much support and so much help when I was starting out, and it didn't cost me a dime. And, call it pay it forward or pay it back or whatever you want to call it. Just the amount of support and the, hey, come on, let's go. Take another step. We're almost to the finish line. Let's go. I got that, and I want to give that back. And if I can do that with inexpensive items that help other laser engravers and help them to be more profitable, because nobody wants to spend $80 on a jig or $50 on a jig, and then they got to sell half a dozen of whatever the widgets that they're making, just to break even on the jig that they bought, much less their materials and products and everything else. So the other thing is, we are a niche community. One of my friends told me this today. He says, he says, you're going on YouTube? Holy cow. That's such a niche, not market, but what's the word I'm looking for? A niche group of people, because you don't see advertisements for people that are doing laser engraving or laser cutting services.
Not yet.
Not yet. But I mean, for the stuff that we do, Alex, I mean, I watched when you were doing episodes, when you still had your store open and you had your brick and mortar retail store and people were walking in and dropping stuff off I paid attention to every one of your videos. And one of the videos that impressed me the most was when you were doing those hay forks, and you had to come up with a jig so that you could, and I don't even remember how many of those little hay picking forks things were in the box from China. But there was easily a couple hundred, if not 1,000 of those things in the box.
The little the pigtail turners with the wooden handles.
Those I have friends that have horses, and they call those hay forks, and they break off chunks of alfalfa and they throw it in the horse's feed bucket and blah blah blah. Anyway, watching you, I don't think it was live, I think you were just recording it, but watching you literally on the fly come up with a jig, and I'm like, I can do that too. And so again, I go back to, we are a very niche community, and why not have a store? At the end of the street in your niche community. I mean, it's such a great idea. And if myself and a few other people that are making, we'll call them products for engravers, jumped on the bandwagon, and we didn't try to outdo each other by, I'm selling mine for $24.99 and he's selling his for $25. And none of that BS. I don't want to play that game. That's not why I'm here.
Yep.
I'm not here to make $1 million. I've got a hobby that pays, and eventually I want to get a UV galvo, just because I want to be able to do. I like making gifts with my lasers and my CNC machines. The last 4 Christmases, all of the gifts that I've done have all been made by hand. Awesome. Whether they were on the CNC machine or the laser or engraved with the fiber or the CO2, et cetera, et cetera. I want to get back to that because, I mean, let's be fair. Any asshole can go on Amazon and spend $100 on his kids and call it quits. But I'm 52 years old. I'll be 53 next month. I kind of grew up old school where gifts had meaning, and the person that was buying the gift put some actual thought into it. I mean, it's not a gift card, but so your store, the LMA, we'll call it the LMA marketplace. Is that what
Laser Everything Marketplace? Yeah, because it'll be for beyond the LMA. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's going to be for everybody.
The Laser Everything Marketplace. It's such a great idea because people are going to, when they buy their laser or thinking about buying a laser, they're going to want to need items for their lasers to make their jobs easier. Focal sticks, jigs, sources for raw materials like blank coins and all things engravable with low quantity, and you don't have to subscribe or pay a fee to JDS. I'm not a fan of those. Again, working for the federal government for 24 years now, there's a particular brand of communications radio, starts with an M. Not a fan. Very much like our friends at Apple and their proprietary BS that they jam down everybody's throat. But I'm not a fan of that. I don't like proprietary anything.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, I wish I could have coined the phrase open source.
Yeah, right.
Free to everybody. I like that idea, but I like money too. So, but that being said,
they can coexist. I think those things can coexist. Yeah, you could. I look at, not to get off on a tangent, but I have to say something about this because it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Look at Laser Everything. If you've been in the LMA, man, 99% of the most vital, important information you need to succeed is up on the channel for free for everybody. I've always been committed to that. And I like money too. I like feeding my kids. I like having a comfortable home to live in. You know what I mean? I like being able to put gas in my car. But people that subscribe to the LMA I firmly believe they're voluntarily. We don't hold anything hostage. There's nothing behind a paywall. I don't give you 3 of the 5 secret tips to laser engraving on the channel and then charge you for the other 2.
Not at all.
You can have an open source project and be a successful business person at the same time. I absolutely 100% believe that. I just want to throw that out there because that is Laser Everything. That's how we operate.
Absolutely is.
Yeah, that's how we operate.
And that's why I'm such a big fan of Laser Everything. Folks, I follow a lot of groups on Facebook, and I answer a lot of questions, and a lot of people are having issues with focal length. They don't understand why their laser's not engraving on one thing, but it does on another thing. And it's like, well, you're out of focus.
Yep.
Or, this, that, and the other. And one of the questions that came up a couple of days ago, I referred them to the video that Kyle did on the blue pocket knife, and you were doing the pattern masking. Yep. Oh, loved it. Your technique and the way that you simplified it was genius. I saw Alex's version when he was doing it with Adobe Illustrator. I'm like, ooh, that looks long and hard. And then Kyle comes out and he's like, yeah, all you got to do is click this, and boom. And then he drags it across. And I'm sorry, Alex, you okay? Thumbs up? Still breathing? Good to go? Okay. Anyway, so Kyle, kudos, buddy. It was, again, open source, just another way to make things easier. And that's the other thing too about LMA and the Laser Everything video channel. With the different presenters that you have, you get a different perspective, and there's, I hate to use the phrase, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
You guys show that, and Alex, you yourself have shown many different ways to approach or get to a solution with a particular material.
Dude, I change my mind all the time too. Like, I seriously, like, you'll watch one episode and I'm like, this is the best way to do this thing, and then I'll like a month and a half later, I'm like,
I've seen
this
those
is
videos.
the best way to do this thing. And I because I'm always learning too, and we talk about this on the podcast all the time. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I am constantly learning. And when I figure out a better way or a cooler way or a new way that I've not seen before to do something, I like sharing that with people. I am not always going to be right the first time or the second time or the third time.
No.
And a ton of this is subjective, right? A ton of this
Absolutely.
is, what's the best way for me is not going to be the best way for Boyce or for Kyle or whatever. So things are always changing, always evolving. We're always learning. We're always trying to update our information, have the most up-to-date, accurate information. And having more people involved, to your point, only accelerates that and amplifies that. So,
absolutely.
I think it's also kind of like video editing. There's 30 different ways to edit a video. There's different processes, different shortcuts people could like, and it's kind of that same kind of style, if you will, or flow. That makes perfect sense.
It does.
I'll say for myself, when that marketplace opens, Alex, I'm gonna be the first sucker on there, man, because I'm new to it. I'm not gonna bother looking for suppliers yet. So I'm just gonna wait. So whoever comes there is gonna get my business. Period. I'm just gonna go all in because that's the point of this thing.
So
our own little atmosphere.
When we started the marketplace, first it was Kyle and I were in there doing the coding and stuff, trying to figure out how the back end software works. And then we brought in a team from India, and I had them kind of do like the brutal grunt work that needed to be done to get things like the gears turning and get things actually like moving. And then we hired Amanda. She's awesome. She's down in New York City, and Amanda's our full-time web dev now, and she's polishing it up, and she's going to do maintenance and make sure that like we're good to go for launch. And we're very, very close to opening now. I'm really hoping for September, unless some kind of big, roadblock comes up between now and then. Things are looking really, really good right now, and I'm just so excited to share that with everybody. And you're going to be one of our star sellers, man. You're certainly one of the most active. You've got a huge library of stuff they're going to be putting out there for people right out of the gate. And so I want people to know about your products.
Thank you.
Whether it's on Etsy or on the Laser Everything Marketplace or wherever, you offer tools that make people's jobs easier, and I feel like it's my job to make sure that people hear and see that. So,
no, thank you very much.
Also, of course,
we definitely appreciate that.
Just review, guys. If you want to find his jigs, it's J&J Custom Treasure on Etsy.
Yep.
Okay, that's the best way to find it. We can put the link in the bio or in the edited version.
And I think that's a great place to call it for tonight. We're coming right up on an hour here. James, are you joining us for a bonus episode today?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
This is great. I love this.
Perfect. So if you guys want to hear more from James and you're not already signed up for the LMA, go sign up, please. Help support the channel, Laser Everything. It pays our employees. It manages our communities. It makes it possible for us to continue to make more content, whether it's the podcast, audio or video, our tutorial content, our fun content, the Discord, LMA, Facebook, all that stuff takes a lot of time, and a lot of people have given a lot in order to make these places possible, and the LMA supports that. So if you want to find out more, you want to keep listening to what James has to say, et cetera, go join us over there. It's masters.lasereverything.net. If you can't swing it right now, no big deal. Content's free for everyone anyway. But there are links to our absolutely 100% free Discord and Facebook group down in the description. Check those communities out instead. They are awesome. They're full of amazing people, very kind, very, very incredibly helpful. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. Those 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts make such a big difference as far as discoverability goes. So if you have a second and you're thinking about it, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. And I think that's it. Am I forgetting anything, guys?
That sounds like
You're
it.
good.
And on Thursday, yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, boys.
I'll just say Thursdays, we're going to be having another podcast on Thursday still. We'll be coming back around for more people.
Yep. It's going to be, we're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good sticking to our schedule. So every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:00 p.m. EST, we're going to be right here with another podcast episode for you. Lots of content coming out. Blah, 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 blah. You've heard it all. All of James' links to everything he's got going to be down in the description for you. So make sure you check that out. And I think that's all we got. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was,
Thank you for having me.
Of
Thank
course,
you very
man.
much.
This was so much fun. I love picking your brain. You just got so many interesting tidbits in there and so much to say and share. So I really wanted to get you on so we could get you up on the platform today.
Very much appreciated. Thank you.
No worries. And boys, Kyle, thanks for chilling. Appreciate you guys.
Of course.
And I think that's it, guys. So thank you much for joining us, and we will see you in the next one.
Perfect.
Have a good night.